We we are up at the start of the last final today. It's the under 17 women's quad. Closest to us in the black and red, we have City Island in lane 2, Dawn lane 3, Saratoga lane 4, Y Quad Cities lane 5, Community lane 6, and White Marsh lane 7 on the far side.
What you'll see here behind the camera where we're looking from right now is that's what's called the aligner's hut. There's an umpire who's stationed there all day, or perhaps a morning shift and an afternoon shift, but it's their job to kind of radio in. You'll see the boat holders that are on the pontoons. They're kind of just laying down there on their stomachs, laying prone. The umpire in the aligner's hut will make sure that every bow is as in line as possible. Try to make sure that every boat races the full 2,000 meters, not more, not less. They're all aligned, and it's really just a fair race.
Absolutely. Particularly, we talk about the senior race that we just saw with the international kind of caliber athletes that we saw. But these girls are really just starting their Henley experience and perhaps even their rowing careers. They are under 17. This might be their first Henley experience, and certainly a very exciting group here. We've got Dawns from Mississauga, which is just down the highway, but other than that, we see a full American contingent here.
Yeah, and you see crews like Y Quad City and Saratoga. Y Quad City has been doing exceptionally well in the sculling races so far. Yesterday's finals and today. I know they took at least one of the doubles earlier today. And then over in lane 6, community rowing out of Boston. Mainstay the last few years. They've really become a dominant program, not only in junior rowing, a little bit in senior, but certainly their junior programs are huge and very, very competitive.
Y Quad Cities coming through in lane 5. That's they had the fastest qualifying time. But on the other side of them, Saratoga really probably quite similar in terms of their qualifying times to get into this final today.
Should be interesting then to see the two crews try and kind of battle things out as they kind of, you know, lead perhaps the rest of the pack out of lane 4 and lane 5. And this, of course, is the last race of the day. This is event number 36.
Lucky for these ladies, it does look like the wind seems to be calming down a little bit. Being the final event, it's after 6 p.m. here in St. Catharines. The water is probably a little bit more favorable in it, which is nice for the perhaps less experienced athletes.
Yeah, pretty clean start so far. A couple strokes into the start, not too much splashing around, which really does go to show. If you go back and watch some of our races from earlier this afternoon, it was pretty bumpy, pretty choppy, even for the more senior and experienced athletes that have been rowing, obviously, significantly longer than these under 17 girls.
The goal of the first couple of strokes really is to just get your boat moving, to go from stationary to up to speed as fast as possible. You saw them take a couple of very short, kind of choppy strokes to really get the boat up to speed as fast as possible and, try and assert themselves maybe a little bit, try and get out ahead.
I know some of my crews towards the end of my career, we used to call it starting like a train. Choo choo. Tomorrow, of course, we do have races running all day long here at the 136th Royal Canadian Henley. I believe finals run from about 2 o'clock, around 2 o'clock through to about 4 o'clock. Then there will be a bit of a delay because the second section of our finals tomorrow are going to be all dashes. So the about 4:30 until about 6 o'clock will run only 500-meter races. Very exciting. Not that 2,000-meter races aren't exciting. So please feel free, if you've got time, join us tomorrow afternoon for a lot of exciting races.
Still a very exciting race here in the under 17 women's quad. The unmistakable red boat from Community looks like they've got a bit of a lead as we pan through the first 500 meters. I don't know, maybe Dawn Rowing Club right up there with them.
Very difficult to tell who's in. Yeah, that is CRI, maybe
Half a boat.
half a boat at most, but this is still really tight. Everyone really still in contention. No crew has been dropped yet, 500 meters in. Really nice to see the competitive, level out of these athletes here. CRI was doing a really good job, I thought, with their posture as they came through that first 500. I think it can be very challenging, particularly for the younger, inexperienced athletes, as they get tired, as they start to feel the fatigue and the lactic acid, to let themselves collapse in and not sit with good posture. That is only going to really make things worse as it starts to use the muscle groups that aren't as strong. But CRI doing an excellent job as they pass through that first 500-meter mark of not doing that.
It looks really busy behind them. You can see the safety boats and the umpire boats. Because this is the last race of the day, they'll be followed down by all the boats that were up at the start. So they definitely have lots of attention on them, that's for sure.
Yeah, a bit of a flotilla following them down, which can be hopefully pretty exciting for them. Not too much extra stress, I hope.
They are racing towards the finish line for the Westside Rowing Club Past President's Trophy. This trophy was created by Jim Schaub, a past president whose father was also a president of the Westside Rowing Club. It features 2 oarlocks. The oarlocks. On July 30th, 1975, the Westside Rowing Club shell house was destroyed by a fire. Only 9 shells and 27 oars survived. They happened to be in St. Catharines at that time for the Henley Regatta. The oarlocks are from a double which escaped that fire.
Wow, that is quite a story. It I think speaks to the relationship here between St. Catharines Rowing Club and the Westside Rowing Club. It's about 20-30 minutes just over the border, literally underneath the Peace Bridge that runs from Canada to Buffalo. And, St. Catharines always going over there for the Westside Invitational. Westside always coming over here for the St. Catharines Invite. Really good competitive rivalry between the two clubs.
Yeah, Westside definitely with a very long history of its own. One of my favorite regattas for sure to attend.
Why is that, Allie?
I think maybe because as a coach, it's also a little bit shorter. They only race 1,500 meters west side for the high school regatta.
That is a good point. I always liked it as a high school athlete here in the summer rowing for St. Catharines. You got a cool mug.
That's true.
Here we come through approaching the 1,250 mark. In this, the last race of the day, the women's under-17 quad does look to be CRI just holding their lead. But I think Dawn Rowing Club, as you observed earlier, Ali, still trying to push up and hold on and not get dropped like what it seems like CRI is doing to the rest of the field.
Last year's winner came from Burnaby Lake, of course, out in British Columbia. So it's exciting. We saw a little bit of West Coast sculling in that final last year. This year, it looks like primarily we've got crews from the East Coast.
Of course, Burnaby Lake, the host of the National Rowing Championships and the Canada Cup last year, this year, and I think through to 2019. So that'll be exciting to see. I believe that's the second week of November where you'll see athletes who are striving to really make next year's national team try and put themselves out there. But you know what? That might
shot,
be
yeah,
White Marsh.
White Marsh on the far end there. You've got Allison, Stephanie, Julia, and Ava, and they look like they've really started to put some pressure on. It looks like CRI has dropped back, and now it's Dawn and White Marsh. So you've got lanes 3 and 7 battling it out, and CRI maybe gone off a little bit too fast in the first 500 meters.
And really, we're seeing Saratoga and Quad City, who were the fastest seeded crews, getting dropped by the rest of the field. That is really impressive showing out of certainly the outside crews, White Marsh and Dawn Rowing Club. And
dear.
that is a really unfortunate
broken oar lock perhaps from City Island in lane 2 there.
That's a very unfortunate situation, but we'll have to wish those athletes good luck, and hopefully as younger athletes in an under-17 event, they'll be able to come back and have a good fall season, a winter season, and maybe make a better run, hopefully with some complete equipment in the future.
Certainly hope those young women are okay, but sometimes you see something happen behind you like that unfolding in a race as the crew just slightly up ahead. Maybe that gives you a little extra fuel for the fire. So you can see Dawn Rowing Club looking like they are just gunning for it. You've got Saratoga, Quad Cities have moved far back. CRI even looking like they are losing ground a little bit, and White Marsh and Dawn's White Marsh perhaps even a little bit out ahead.
Yeah, CRI does look to be a little sluggish. Perhaps they jumped out pretty aggressively in the first half of the race and just couldn't quite sustain it. Whereas Dawn seems to have done just the opposite, kind of settled in, had a pretty decent but not too aggressive start, paced themselves, and it's really paying dividends here for Dawn Rowing Club as they and White Marsh really stormed down to the line. From this angle, I don't know, Ali, I can't tell. Both crews look pretty aggressive and clean.
This could be a barn burner for sure. Let's see who looks like they stop rowing first. That's usually my tell-all.
I think it's going to be Dawn, maybe by a foot. I couldn't call that right now.
I'm going to watch and see who celebrates, but it looks like both girls,
Both.
they aren't sure who won it.
White.
Dawn looks very convincing, though.
Yeah, I think both crews celebrated a little bit, but
Let's see
Dawn
what comes up
hesitated.
here.
Dawn hesitated before the celebration, and then it was more enthusiastic. Whereas White Marsh,
The Dawn Rowing Club by
Wow.
0.21 seconds over White Marsh. Dawn Rowing Club out of Port Credit.
that is really exciting to see. 0.2 seconds. Of course, that is the unofficial time. But when you think that this is over 2,000 meters, these athletes will have pulled about 240, 250 strokes to get down this course. And to have that come down to a fraction of a second, that is absolutely incredible. Well done to all four of those athletes. That's from Dawn, from Bao, Ronia, Riki, I think, Abigail, Angelica, and from White Marsh, Allison, Stephanie, Julia, and Ava.
We want to thank everybody at home for tuning in to watch the live stream today. You can find all of these videos archived on YouTube through the Royal Canadian Henley Regatta Facebook page, and we certainly hope to have a full audience back with us tomorrow for the finals on Saturday.
Yeah, so I have been Brent Duncan.
And Ali Zimmerman.
So we'll see you tomorrow and enjoy the rest of racing at the 136th Royal Canadian Henley.